How God can drive you away from the chaos of your own thoughts. Your body is tired, but your mind refuses to sit down. You close your eyes and it starts again. That conversation from earlier, the tone you should have used, the message you should not have sent. Then the future shows up like a bully. What if it gets worse? What if you lose them? What if you fail? What if God stays quiet? And the strangest part is, you can be in a safe room, in a quiet house, in a normal life, and still feel like you are running from something. Here is what I want you to know right now. God is not standing at the finish line of your self-control, waiting for you to arrive. He is not watching you spiral, arms crossed, disappointed. He steps into the storm with you. He speaks inside the noise. He takes you by the hand and leads you away from the chaos of your own thoughts, one steady step at a time. Because mental chaos is not just a personality trait. It is often a sign that your soul has been overworked. You have been carrying meaning that was never meant to sit on your shoulders. You have been trying to predict pain so it will not surprise you. You have been trying to control outcomes so you will not have to feel disappointment. And your mind has been doing what it always does when it is scared. It starts scanning, replaying, rehearsing, preparing. It calls it wisdom, but it feels like prison. This video is a pathway, not a quick fix, not a motivational speech, not religious noise piled on top of your mental noise. A pathway. You are going to learn what fuels the storm inside you, how to recognize the invisible triggers, and how God gently redirects your inner world so you can breathe again. Not someday, today. And we are going to start with the first thing most people miss. The chaos is not coming from having too many thoughts. It is coming from what you think those thoughts mean. Mental chaos rarely begins with volume. It begins with weight. One small thought lands in your mind, and instead of passing through like a cloud, it sinks like a stone. It does not stay a thought. It becomes a message about who you are, what will happen, and whether you are safe. You do not just think, I made a mistake. You think I ruined everything. You do not just think they sounded distant. You think I am about to be abandoned. You do not just think this is hard. You think, I cannot handle this, and I am failing at life. That is the hidden fuel, meaning. Your mind is not only processing information, it is assigning significance. It is trying to prevent pain by predicting it. So it attaches meaning to every detail. A pause becomes rejection. A delay becomes danger. A minor symptom becomes a diagnosis. A little conflict becomes the end of the relationship. The mind does this because it believes that if it can see the threat early enough, it can control the outcome. It calls that wisdom. But when you live like that, your inner world never rests. You might be sitting still, but inside you are sprinting. Here is the subtle cruelty of it. You can be exhausted and still feel responsible. Responsible to think harder, analyze longer, rehearse every option, anticipate every scenario, carry every consequence before it arrives. The chaos is not the number of thoughts, it is the responsibility you place on them. Every thought becomes a job, every worry becomes a duty, every possibility becomes something you must solve right now or you will pay later. And you know what makes it heavier? Fear, guilt, control, and loneliness. Fear says, if I stop thinking, something bad will happen. Guilt says, if I were better, I would not be struggling like this. Control says, if I can just plan enough, I can avoid heartbreak. Loneliness says, it is on me. No one else is coming. When those four are in the room, your mind does not feel like a mind. It feels like a crowded emergency meeting that never ends. Now listen closely, because this is where God begins to move you toward freedom. God does not begin by scolding your brain for being loud. He begins by revealing what is heavy. He begins by helping you name what you are carrying. Because vague fear thrives in the dark, but it weakens in the light. And when the weight is named, it becomes something you can place into God's hands instead of swallowing whole. So do this with me, not as a trick, but as honesty. Take the thought that keeps returning and ask one question. What meaning am I attaching to this? Not what happened, but what am I telling myself it proves? Then ask a second question. What is the fear underneath? What am I trying to avoid feeling? What loss am I trying to prevent? What outcome am I trying to control? You are not interrogating yourself. You are telling the truth. And truth is the first door God opens. Maybe the meaning sounds like, this proves I am not enough. Or this proves I will always be alone. Or this proves I am falling behind. Or this proves my life is fragile. These meanings feel like facts, but they are often old wounds speaking with a new voice. The mind borrows yesterday's pain and uses it to interpret today's moment. That is why one small trigger can create a tidal wave. It is not only about today. It is about every time you felt unsafe before, every time you were disappointed, every time you had to be strong without help. This is where I want you to picture God, not as a distant judge, but as a shepherd who knows how to lead anxious hearts. A shepherd does not yell at sheep for being startled. He does not call them weak for running. He steps close. He creates space from the cliff. He guides them away from the edge. That is what God does with you. He does not merely tell you, stop thinking. He leads you to safer ground by changing what your thoughts are anchored to. And here is the relief you may not have felt in a long time. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are carrying too much meaning, too much responsibility, too much pressure, and you are trying to carry it alone inside your head. God is offering you a different way. Not a mind with no thoughts, but a heart with a different anchor. A mind can be busy and still be held. That is what His presence does. It holds you steady, while the storm loses its grip. In the next part, we are going to expose a trap that keeps the weight on your shoulders. It is when your mind stops being a place of reflection and becomes a courtroom, and you are the one always on trial. When your mind becomes chaotic, it usually does not stay neutral. It turns into a courtroom. And the problem with a courtroom is that it is not built for rest. It is built for verdicts. In that courtroom, your thoughts start presenting evidence, building a case, replaying scenes, highlighting your worst moments, and trying to reach one conclusion: guilty. Not just guilty of a mistake, but guilty of being who you are. You wake up, and before your feet touch the floor, the trial has already started. Look what you did. Look what you did not do. Look how far behind you are. Look how you disappointed them. Look how you are not consistent. Look how you should be stronger than this by now. And you can feel it, that tightening in your chest, the pressure behind your eyes, the tension in your jaw. It is not only anxiety, it is accusation. This is one of the most exhausting forms of mental chaos, because it tricks you into thinking that condemnation is motivation. It whispers, if I punish myself enough, I will finally improve. If I criticize myself hard enough, I will become safe from future failure. If I stay ashamed, I will stay careful. And then your mind keeps you on trial, so you never feel innocent enough to rest. Now here is the dangerous part. Over time, you can start confusing God's voice with the voice of your inner prosecutor. You assume that if you feel condemned, it must be conviction. You assume that if you feel heavy, it must be holiness. You assume that if you feel constantly inadequate, that must be humility. But that is not how God speaks to His children. Conviction has a different flavor than condemnation. Condemnation attacks your identity. It says, you are the problem. You will never change. You are too much or not enough. Conviction is specific, gentle, and hopeful. It says, this needs to change, but you are still loved. Condemnation leaves you cornered. Conviction leaves you guided. Condemnation makes you hide. Conviction invites you to come closer. So when your mind is in courtroom mode, the first thing God wants to do is change the judge you are standing before. Because you were never meant to stand alone in front of your failures, defending yourself with excuses, trying to earn mercy by being perfect. God meets you as a father, not as a prosecutor. A father does not build a case to destroy his child. A father corrects to restore. A father speaks truth to heal, not to shame. Think about how you treat someone you love when they are overwhelmed. You do not say, "This is proof you are pathetic." You say, "Talk to me. What happened? Tell me what you are carrying. Let us take this one step at a time." That is the tone of God. He is not interested in humiliating you. He is interested in freeing you. Here is a practical shift that will change the temperature inside you. When an accusing thought shows up, do not argue with it for 5 minutes. Identify it in 5 seconds. Ask, is this thought leading me toward God or away from Him? Is it giving me a next step in love, or is it crushing me with a label? Is it producing humility or hopelessness? Because hopelessness is not a fruit of God's Spirit. Shame might feel spiritual, but it is not salvation. God's voice may confront, but it will never abandon you while it does. And there is another layer here. The courtroom is often built from old messages you absorbed long ago. A parent who was impossible to please. A relationship where you had to earn affection. A season where you were only valued for performance. Those voices can become internal law. And then, when life gets stressful, your mind returns to the rules it learned. Be perfect or be rejected. Prove yourself or be unsafe. Control everything or get hurt. No wonder your thoughts are loud. They are trying to keep you protected in a world that once felt unpredictable. God's healing begins when you let Him rewrite those rules. Not by pretending you did not suffer, but by letting His love speak louder than the old verdicts. You are not on trial in the presence of God. You are being restored. You are being carried. You are being taught how to live without constantly defending your worth. In the next part, I will show you something that surprises people. God's first move is not always giving answers. Often, His first move is giving presence, because the chaos quiets down when you realize you are not alone with your mind. Most people think the moment God shows up, He will explain everything. Why it happened, what to do next, how to fix it fast. But if you have ever been in a real storm, you know what you need first is not a lecture. It is someone steady beside you. Someone who does not panic when you panic. Someone whose calm becomes contagious. That is often God's first move. Not answers, presence. Because the chaos of your thoughts is intensified by one painful feeling: being alone with them. When you feel alone, every thought becomes a threat you must manage by yourself. You do not just have worries, you have a job. You must interpret everything, solve everything, prevent everything. The mind turns into a control room with 100 blinking alarms, and you are the only one on duty. Of course you are exhausted, but notice what happens when someone you trust walks into the room. You are still tired, your problems still exist, but your nervous system starts to unclench. Your breathing changes. Your shoulders drop. The situation did not instantly change, but your sense of being alone did. And that is where peace begins. God does not calm the mind by demanding silence. He calms the mind by changing who you feel abandoned with. He enters the space where your thoughts are racing, and He says, "I am here." You do not have to carry this by yourself. You do not have to solve tonight. You do not have to predict tomorrow. You do not have to rehearse every disaster to be safe. I am with you. Now here is the part that feels too simple for people who are used to complicated solutions. Before you try to fix your mind, let God meet your honesty. Not your performance, not your polished faith voice, your honesty. The kind that sounds like, "I am overwhelmed. I feel out of control. My thoughts are scaring me. I do not know how to stop this. I need you close." That admission is not weakness. It is a doorway. The enemy of peace is not struggle. It is isolation. When you hide, you suffer alone. When you bring it into God's presence, you stop bleeding in secret. And I want you to understand something, because this is where many people misunderstand spirituality. God's presence is not a concept. It is not just an idea you agree with. It is a felt reality that can change the chemistry of your heart when you lean into it. It is like standing in the shade after hours in the sun. You realize how thirsty you were only when you finally drink. So here is a practice you can do in the middle of your chaos, and it does not require perfect focus. Give God 30 seconds, not to perform, not to impress, just to be with Him. If you can only whisper one sentence, whisper it. If you can only think it, think it. God is not measuring your eloquence. He is responding to your surrender, and in those 30 seconds do not demand the whole map of your life. Ask for one thing: closeness, because closeness is the foundation that makes every other step possible. When you know God is near, the thoughts stop feeling like a pack of wild animals. They become something you can observe without obeying, something you can notice without being owned by it. This is why the Psalms are full of honest lines. People in Scripture did not calm their minds by pretending. They calmed their minds by speaking truth in God's presence. They complained, they cried, they questioned, and then they anchored. Not because their problems disappeared, but because God became their center. And that brings us to the next shift, one that will feel like someone turning the lights on in a dark room. Your mind lives in what if. God will lead you into even if. Not denial, stability, not ignorance, courage. In the next part, I will show you how that one shift can break the spiral and give your heart a place to stand. If you listen to your mind when it is anxious, you will hear one phrase repeated in 1,000 forms. What if? What if it goes wrong? What if they leave? What if I never recover? What if I make the wrong choice? What if God does not come through? The anxious mind treats the future like a courtroom too, but this time the evidence is imaginary. It drags you into scenes that have not happened and then demands that you feel them now. That is why mental chaos is so draining. You are not only living today, you are living 10 possible tomorrows at the same time. And each imagined tomorrow asks for emotional payment in advance. Fear wants you to pay before you receive. Anxiety wants you to bleed before you are cut. It calls it preparation, but it is often just suffering early. God does not mock the what-if questions. He knows they come from a heart that wants to be safe, but He refuses to let what-if become your home. Because what-if has no bottom. It is a staircase that keeps going down. You answer one what-if, and another appears, louder. And if you live there long enough, your inner world becomes a place where hope cannot breathe. So God offers a different center. Even if it does not turn out the way I want, God will still be with me. Even if I do not have control, I am not abandoned. Even if I feel afraid, I am not forsaken. Even if I do not understand, God's care is not on pause. This is not pretending everything will be easy. This is choosing a foundation that does not crack when circumstances shift. Faith does not remove the storm. It relocates your center. And that is the critical difference. What if makes you stare at the storm until you become the storm? Even if turns your face toward the one who can hold you inside it. What if says, I must figure this out or I will collapse? Even if says, I can breathe while I figure it out because God is holding me. What if says, the worst case scenario owns my mind? Even if says, God owns my life, and I am not a hostage to my imagination. Here is a moment to be very honest. Some of your what-if thinking is not really about the future. It is about pain from the past. If you have been disappointed before, you expect disappointment again. If you have been betrayed before, you look for betrayal in every silence. If you have been rejected before, you interpret normal distance as proof you are not wanted. The mind uses the past as a lens and then calls it realism. But God is not asking you to be naive. He is asking you to be anchored. So take one what-if thought that keeps looping and listen to it like a friend would. What is it trying to protect? What is it afraid will happen? Then answer it with even if. Not as a slogan, but as a decision. Even if I do not get the outcome I want, I will not be alone. Even if I feel weak, I will not be without help. Even if this season is hard, God is still good. Even if the door closes, God can open another. Even if I cannot see it yet, He can guide me one step at a time. Notice what happens inside you when you speak like that. The mind does not instantly become silent, but it becomes less tyrannical. The thought is still there, but it is no longer crowned as king. You start to feel a small space open up, a little air, a little choice. And in that space, God can lead. Because God's peace is not just an emotion, it is a posture. It is the decision to stand on something deeper than your fear. It is the choice to stop negotiating with imaginary disasters and start walking with a real shepherd. And the next step is where this becomes practical in a way you can repeat any time. There is a holy pause, a single moment your thoughts cannot control if you claim it. A small pattern interrupt that breaks the spiral before it becomes a storm. In the next part, I will give you that pause. When your mind is in chaos, it feels like you have to keep moving inside your head. If you stop thinking, you fear something will fall apart. So the spiral continues, not because it is helpful, but because it feels necessary. That is why the next step is not to win an argument with your thoughts. It is to interrupt the momentum. This is the holy pause, a single moment you choose on purpose, where you step out of the current and refuse to be dragged. Here is the truth most people never realize. Thoughts feel unstoppable because they are fast, not because they are true. They gain authority through speed. They pile up so quickly you mistake the pile for proof. The holy pause slows the room down so you can see what is actually happening. It is not dramatic. It is not mystical. It is simple, and that is why it works. You pause, you breathe, and you speak one steady sentence that your mind cannot rewrite. This is not a long prayer segment. It is not a performance. It is a declaration of reality. Choose a sentence that grounds you in God's presence and breaks the spell of urgency. Something like, God is here. I am not alone. I will not be ruled by fear. Say it out loud if you can. If you cannot, say it inside. The power is not volume, the power is agreement. Because chaos feeds on urgency. It insists that everything must be solved right now. It convinces you that if you do not keep thinking, you are irresponsible. The holy pause tells your nervous system a different story. It says, I am safe enough to breathe. I am held enough to slow down. God is near enough that I do not have to panic. And for some people, the hardest part is letting the pause be small. You want the pause to fix everything instantly. But God often leads you out of chaos the same way He leads you out of any wilderness, one step at a time. The pause is not the whole journey. It is the first step that makes the rest possible. It is you refusing to let fear drive. So when the spiral begins, do not negotiate with it for 10 minutes. Do not wait until it is huge. Catch it early, the moment you notice the familiar acceleration, the chest tightening, the mental replay starting. You take the pause. One breath. One steady sentence. One return to presence. And then you do something that will feel almost too gentle. But it is the secret. You let the thought be there without obeying it. You do not have to chase it. You do not have to answer it. You do not have to solve it. You let it pass like a car on the road while you stay seated with God. That is what freedom looks like in real time. Not the absence of thoughts, but the ability to remain anchored while they move through. This is where people start to feel something they have not felt in a while. Choice. You realize you can be aware of the thought without being imprisoned by it. You can notice the fear without worshiping it. You can feel the pressure without letting it dictate the next hour of your life. And here is another layer that makes this pause powerful. Your mind does not only speak in sentences, it speaks in pictures. It shows you scenes of failure, rejection, catastrophe, and you react emotionally as if they are happening now. That is why even after you pause, the images can keep pulling at you. So in the next part, we are going to talk about the battle of images and how God replaces what you keep seeing with something truer, steadier, and full of hope. Some of your most exhausting thoughts are not words. They are images. Your mind shows you a scene like a movie, and your body reacts as if it is real. You see the moment you fail. You see the relationship ending. You see yourself getting rejected. You see your bank account empty. You see the phone call with bad news. And even if none of it has happened, your heart races as if it has. That is why mental chaos can feel so physical. Your mind paints a picture, and your nervous system treats it like a warning. This is the battle of images, and if you do not recognize it, you will keep trying to win with logic while your imagination keeps winning with emotion. Because images carry weight. A sentence can be debated. A picture feels like proof. And notice what your mind tends to show you. It rarely shows you a neutral future. It shows you the worst one. It shows you yourself alone, embarrassed, powerless, forgotten. It is not random. That pattern reveals where you feel most vulnerable. Your mind goes to the places that hurt you most. Then it tries to prepare you by keeping you afraid. It thinks fear will keep you safe. But fear rarely protects. It usually just shrinks your life. So what does God do here? He does not ask you to pretend the images are not there. He asks you to bring them into His light and let Him speak into them. Because an image in the dark becomes a nightmare. An image in the presence of God becomes a conversation. It becomes something that can be healed. Here is a practical way to do that without turning this into a complicated ritual. When a catastrophic image appears, do not just watch it. Identify it. Say, "This is an image of fear. This is not a prophecy. This is not God. This is my mind trying to protect me." And then ask one question. What would it look like if God were in this scene with me? Not fixing everything instantly, but present, steady, guiding. Picture Him as a shepherd, not in a hurry, not shaken, not distant. A shepherd does not run ahead yelling instructions from far away. He walks close enough that the sheep can hear him breathe. He places himself between the sheep and the cliff. He redirects with calm authority. He knows the terrain. He knows where the safe ground is. And he knows how easily anxious hearts drift toward the edge. So take the image your mind keeps replaying and place God inside it. Not as a decoration, but as your center. If the image is you alone, picture His hand on your shoulder. If the image is you failing, picture Him helping you stand, not scolding you while you are on the floor. If the image is you being rejected, picture Him staying, choosing you, calling you loved. If the image is uncertainty, picture Him leading you one step at a time, not demanding you see the whole path. This is not fantasy. This is alignment. You are training your mind to stop imagining a future without God in it, because most anxiety is imagining the future while forgetting God's presence. You include Him, and the image changes. The circumstance may still be difficult, but the meaning shifts. The conclusion shifts. The fear loses its monopoly. And here is something you may need to hear. The images that haunt you often come from wounds that were never comforted. Moments you felt unsafe, unseen, unprotected. Your mind keeps producing similar images because it is trying to avoid repeating that pain. But God does not heal you by making you stronger at fearing. He heals you by making you safer in love. His presence does not erase your history, but it reshapes your expectation. So when the image shows up again, do not panic. See it as a signal. Not a sign that you are losing faith, but a sign that your heart needs care. Then take the holy pause you learned and add one simple step. Replace the scene. Replace it with God near. Replace it with Him guiding. Replace it with Him holding you in the middle of the unknown. Now this next part is where everything begins to feel practical in your daily life. Because God does not only calm your mind by comforting you, He also calms your mind by directing you. Sometimes the chaos stays loud because you are stuck in indecision, and your mind keeps running because it has nowhere to go. God often leads you out by giving you one obedient step, one next move, and when you take it, the noise shrinks. There is a moment when mental chaos stops being about fear and starts being about paralysis. You are not only anxious, you are stuck. Stuck between options, stuck between conversations you need to have and conversations you are avoiding, stuck between what you know you should do and what you are afraid will happen if you do it. And when you are stuck, the mind keeps running because motion feels like safety. If you do not move in real life, you move in your head. That is why overthinking often feels like action, even though it produces no peace. It gives you the illusion of progress while your life remains frozen. God often drives you away from the chaos of your thoughts by doing something surprisingly simple. He gives you one next step, not 10 steps, not the full plan for the next year. One step that is clear enough to obey and small enough to do. Because chaos grows in indecision. Peace grows in direction. Here is what happens inside you when God gives you a next step. The mind stops scanning for every possible outcome because it now has something holy to focus on. Not a theory, a practice. Not a mental debate, an act of trust. Anxiety wants you to live in endless analysis. God invites you into faithful movement. This is not about earning peace through productivity. It is about breaking the loop that keeps you trapped. The mind spirals hardest when it senses you are avoiding something important, a conversation, a boundary, a decision, a rest you refuse, an apology you need to make, a habit you need to stop. Avoidance creates a background alarm in the soul, and you can distract yourself for a while, but the noise will return because your heart knows there is unfinished business. So here is the question that becomes a doorway. What is the next obedient step God is putting in front of me that I keep postponing? It might be sending one message you have been overthinking for a week. It might be making the appointment you keep delaying because you are afraid of what you will hear. It might be asking for help instead of pretending you are fine. It might be forgiving, not because they deserve it, but because you are tired of carrying the poison. It might be turning off the screen at night because doom scrolling keeps your brain inflamed. It might be taking a walk, drinking water, and going to bed because you have been treating your body like it does not matter. It might be saying no, even though you fear disappointing people. Notice how practical these are. That is intentional. God's guidance often comes to us in ordinary steps because the goal is not a spiritual performance, it is a restored life. Now your mind will try to talk you out of this. It will demand certainty before obedience. It will say, what if I do the wrong thing? What if they react badly? What if it does not fix everything? But faith rarely gives you certainty first. Faith gives you direction first. The certainty grows as you walk. The clarity comes in motion. And do not miss this. One obedient step does not have to solve the whole problem to quiet the chaos. Sometimes it just proves you are not helpless. It proves you are being led. It proves you are not stuck in your head forever. Even if the step is small, it changes the story inside you from I am trapped to I am moving with God. So I want you to imagine your thoughts like a crowd in a room all talking at once. God does not always silence the crowd by shouting louder. He quiets the room by guiding you to the door. He places his hand on your shoulder and says, "This way. Right now. One step." And when you take it, something shifts. Your mind may still be busy, but it becomes less hostile. The noise begins to thin out because your heart is no longer circling. It is following. In the next part, we are going to bring everything home. God does not shame you for spiraling. He leads you back like a tired child. There is a gentle exit from the mental storm, and it ends in rest. Real rest. The kind your soul has been begging for. God does not lead you out of mental chaos the way a critic would. He leads you out the way a father carries a tired child. He does not stand over you and demand, "Get it together." He kneels close and says, "Come with me." And if you have been living with a loud mind, you may need to hear this as plainly as possible. You are not weak because your thoughts are loud. You are human, and God is near. The gentle exit begins when you stop treating your mind like an enemy and start treating your soul like it needs care. Some people have been fighting themselves for so long they think battle is normal. They wake up bracing for impact. They go to bed rehearsing failure. They measure their spiritual life by how calm they feel. And when they feel anxious, they assume God has backed away. But God does not leave because you are overwhelmed. He moves closer. He is not afraid of your noise. He is not offended by your struggle. He is not shocked by your questions. He sees the weight, the pressure, the fear you have been trying to manage, and he meets you right there. So here is what the gentle exit looks like. It is not dramatic. It is honest. You return to the basics. You return to presence. You return to small steps. You return to rest. You let yourself admit, I cannot keep living at this speed inside my head. You let yourself accept that peace is not something you have to earn by being perfect. Peace is something you receive by being held. And you let yourself be guided back to what restores you. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is sleep. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is stop arguing with your thoughts and start caring for your body like it is loved by God. Drink water. Eat something that nourishes you. Turn off the noise. Step outside. Put your phone down. Breathe slowly, not as a self-help trick but as an act of stewardship. Your body is not separate from your spiritual life. When your body is depleted, your mind becomes more vulnerable to fear. God knows this. He made you. And there is another truth that sets people free. Rest is not laziness, it is trust. Rest is you saying, I am not the savior of my life. Rest is you saying, God can work while I sleep. Rest is you saying, I refuse to worship urgency. Rest is you returning to the pace of grace. Now, if you are listening to this and you feel like, I have tried to rest, but my thoughts still chase me, do not interpret that as failure. It just means you are retraining your inner world. You are learning a new pattern. You have spent years letting fear drive. It takes time to let God become your center. But every time you take the holy pause, every time you shift from what if to even if, every time you refuse the courtroom voice, every time you take one obedient step, you are building a new pathway in your mind. A calmer road, a safer place. God is patient in this process. He is not rushing you. He is not grading you. He is leading you. So here is your turning point. If your mind has been a battlefield, let this be the moment you stop fighting alone. Let this be the moment you stop trying to control everything with your thoughts. Let this be the moment you allow God to drive you away from the chaos and into His peace. If you want to mark this decision, write one simple phrase in the comments, peace, or write, God lead me. Not because the comment is magic, but because naming your need is powerful. It is a way of stepping out of hiding. It is a way of saying, I am choosing a new path. And if you stay with this channel, the next message will go deeper into something you may be craving right now. How to hear God when your thoughts will not stop talking. Because God is not only able to calm the storm inside you, He is able to speak to you in a way that makes you feel safe again,